have another question from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Angelina.
I'm superstitious too, so Senator Vance.
Call me JD, please.
All right. Our children's schools are teaching them that they are victims based on race.
Sure.
Family values are being mocked, and our country is being constantly disrespected. How will a Trump-Vance administration address CRT, DEI, and SEL in the public schools and support parent advocates without fear of government reprisals?
Yes, ma'am. Another big and important question, and I obviously don't know the backgrounds of all of you entirely, at least. I don't know the backgrounds of a lot of folks in the room, but, I'm 40 years old, and so I'm very much a child of the 90s. And my wife is 38, though she's probably going to get pissed off for saying that publicly. Can't take it back now. But, so her parents are legal immigrants from South India, okay? And she was born and raised in San Diego, but I think because we grew up in the 90s, and I'm not saying things were perfect, don't mistake me, but we grew up in a country where we were taught to think about people as people and not as whatever artificial, superficial skin color they had. And I think because both of us grew up with that attitude, we met, we fell in love, we started a family, and we never thought anything of it. Right? I mean, there was never, the only funny and slightly awkward comment that anybody ever made is when my mom asked, what ethnicity Usha was, and I said she was Indian. She said, "Which tribe?" I said, "Well, slightly off, Mom, slightly off." But she actually, my mom made this point to me, and I think it's, Mom is so smart. She's just one of the smartest people I've ever met. And she said, I get really mad at all these people talking about your biracial children and, whether they're white or whether they're Indian or what their background is. She's like, they're just our babies, right? And I want us to think about all of our kids, whatever the color of their skin, they're just our babies. They're American babies, and that is what matters. And so I think one thing that we have to do is do better as leaders. Talking about, yes, of course, we've got, differences. And yes, of course, there are things that happen in America's history that aren't perfect. I'm not saying we ignore that, but we talk about it as a way to getting to a point where we see each other as Americans first and foremost. That's the most important thing. That's what we have to get back to. And then we also have to be honest, and this goes back to one of the earlier questions, that a lot of this crap is not something that anybody, black, white, Latino, anything, would teach their kids. They're learning it from very radical curriculums that are being planted in our schools by money coming from American taxpayers. And so I think the first thing that we have to do is defund CRT and all of the radical curricula that's going into our schools. That's really important. But ma'am, I think the leadership part of this is really important too. For some reason, we got it into our heads that in a country as big and diverse and different as ours is, we needed to emphasize our differences. I actually think that what real leadership requires now is emphasizing our commonality as Americans. I think that we have a common destiny in this country, and if we forget that and we ignore it, it's going to rip our country apart. Let's not do that. Let's be Americans first.